Welcome back to Met in the Mess. I'm Brianna.
I'm Megan. And this week we are excited to dive into the topic of prayer, what to do specifically, how to go about prayer when you feel like you're too tired to, which hits home
Yes.
for both of us this week.
This week has been such a blur. I feel like this week has been, that's a good word. It's just been a blur. I just said this week has felt like a pile of mashed potatoes. Like that's exactly what
I
it's
think that
like a
is
perfect
fair.
analogy for what it felt like.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's just
goodness.
been constant, nonstop. I'm ready, I don't know, ready to take what we talk about tonight and apply it moving forward and hopefully be able to turn our mashed potatoes around. Turn them into a loaded potato.
I love mashed potatoes, but don't get me wrong, but
Well,
yeah, I like loaded potatoes more. So let's put some bacon on this thing.
some bacon, some butter, get the chives out. Anywho, you can tell how tired we are.
Here.
But
We've
the
reached the delusion part of the week.
yeah, right, exactly. But speaking of, I know that you have a messy moment from this week.
I do. This week started off actually like last weekend until this week started rough. My husband Cody ended up with this sickness that was like incredibly contagious. So he basically had like quarantined himself to the basement so that none of us would get sick. So it's just been me and the kids 24/7, which I love, but it is so exhausting.
Jesus.
And I was just like to the like at the end of my all of my wits were at the end. Like all my wicks are burnt down, all my like everything. I just my fuses were short. It was a long week of just me and them all day, every day, and all night. And on top of that, like no one was sleeping. It was just a really, really long week. And I was I was to the point on actually Thursday. We usually go to church on Thursday night because Leo has Awana, which if you don't know what Awana is, it's basically like church scouts. Pretty much, it's like kids. It's like youth group. Like so, we and I honestly, I didn't even wanna go. I was getting to the point that we were had to, like, leave, and I was like, "But are you sure you wanna go to Awana?" I was exhausted. I was like, "I don't wanna go." Anyway, didn't wanna go, and I was like, "Are you sure you" I asked him, like, 3 times. I was like, "Are you sure you wanna go to Awana?" He's like, "Yeah, I wanna go. I wanna play with my friends and, whatever." And I was like, "Okay." And I just felt like this. I was like, "Okay, I guess we're gonna go." Like, I just I was "Guess we're gonna go."
Yeah.
Got Meadow all together, got him ready, and got him in his classroom, and I walked back out with Med, and we were just gonna, like, sit in the lobby and watch the church. Like, that's what we usually do is, like, sit in the lobby and watch because there's, like, a TV of the church happening right behind us just because she can run around, whatever, and I was like, "I honestly just don't have the energy to even, like, chase her right now," and I just turned back around, and I was like, "I'm putting you in the toddler room." Like, I, like, went signed her in, took her back, and she went right with the lady, and she grabbed a toy and, like, didn't even notice I walked away, and it was fine. And I just went out and just, like, went actually into the sanctuary, like, actually went into the church and just sat down, and I was just like I took, like, the biggest the biggest breath, and I was like, "Look at God providing me with the rest that I needed." Like, I
Yeah.
needed this break so badly after this week of, like, just sickness in our house and just everyone was so loud, which I'm not complaining about that, it was just a really long week, and I just sat there and I was like, "How cool that God provided me with this rest I needed." Like, I didn't even wanna come tonight. And it ended up I got, like, this full hour of sitting in the sanctuary, listening to worship music, listening to the message, and it was just I felt so relieved, and it was, like, such a breath of such a weight off my shoulders, just getting that hour, like, with God of a break, and I was like, "How cool." So, messy week, but, like, something cool came out of it, so that was awesome.
That's amazing. Praise God that, like, it is. I feel like it's really easy to focus on all the negative, especially when it feels very constant or very heavy, or especially when it's moments of feeling overtouched and overwhelmed and over everything.
Totally.
And it's really hard to miss those little moments of like answered prayers, or even in your case, like time that you didn't even like prayer, you didn't even ask for anything. It's not prayer that you even took, or it's not even prayer that took place. It's just God being there and present in your life. And yeah, just he knew you needed that moment to like draw close to him,
Yeah,
fill your
yeah,
cup back
really
up.
cool. Yeah, exactly, and to think, like, I wasn't even gonna go, and if I didn't go, would have been I couldn't have made it 2 more days without, like, losing it on somebody or yelling or like, something that I did not wanna do, so, yeah, that was
I feel
awesome.
like that so beautifully fits into like what we're talking about because
Mhm.
it's whenever we have these hard weeks, these low moments, these overwhelming moments when w- it's so easy for us to feel like we're being pulled 50 directions or that there's just too much going on to slow ourselves down or we're too tired or we're literally falling asleep at put down or like whatever it may be, or our alarm clock is our toddlers, or like work is just wreaking havoc. And whenever you get home, you're like, the last thing I want to do is feel like I need to like do anything. And it's so easy in those moments to push God aside, to push prayer aside and communicating with Him and push that relationship to the side and kind of take advantage a little bit on our end of like his omnipresence and being like, well, we know he's there.
Mhm.
And I think it so perfectly shows like what you went through of yes, he is always there. He is always watching out for us. But how much more could we gain just by being in relationship with him? And the best way to do that is in going to prayer. Um, and going into the word. And I mean, that's something that I know that I just strive for. I don't think I ever, not to just dive into it, but I'm gonna dive into it. But like, I don't think that was something like, that's something that I am very much relearning now. Like, I feel like as I'm relearning my faith or like growing stronger in my faith, and that's not something that growing up, I really had a full understanding of how to do it. How do you like, what are you supposed to say? Like, prayer was just you say it over dinner, you say it,
Mhm.
like, for any meal, you do it at church, you do it at big family gatherings before you like, before food is
Mhm.
served, and past that or in times of need or, you know, like, there were specific times where it was like, prayer is appropriate here, and you just, like, knew it, and I feel
Mhm.
like that's even a thing that unbelievers could even guess those moments. You know what I mean? I feel like that's how I don't wanna say shallow because they're not shallow. Like, those prayers are very much so important. Praying over our meals,
Mhm.
praying over family events, praying over, like, ABCD, whatever the list is. But there's something so much deeper in taking prayer to another level of I am communicating with my God. This is my relationship with my God. This is time I'm investing to my God. Because if you and I stop communicating today, how are we going to have any relationship? You know, like I think it's so easy to take that omnipresence that God is and take advantage of it because we know he's always present. However, we're not always present. And I think it's super easy to be like, well, he's always there and kind of fall back on that and not kind of like reflect inward and be like, but am I always showing up? Am I always there? Am I doing my part?
Yeah, I think that that makes me think too of, like, growing up Catholic, like, you basically just, like, have to memorize all these prayers, and I remember not long I mean, this is probably maybe within 5, 6 years ago when I started going to, like, a different church outside of the Catholic Church, and I remember this preacher or the pastor was talking about kind of that same thing of, like, people in other like, talking about Catholicism specifically, he's like, you say all these prayers and, like, you don't even know what you're saying. And I thought about that and I was like, yeah, like, you rattle off these prayers that you're taught when you're little. It's like the Lord's Prayer, the Hail Mary, Glory be, all these creeds, like, all these different things we say during different some of them you say during mass, some of them you say other times. And I thought about that and I was like, yeah, what am I saying? Like, I don't it's just it's like you're memorizing the words and you spit them back out and you don't even think like it doesn't even feel it's like a when you talk to like when you're trying to call customer service and it's just a robot. Like I feel
Yeah.
like God's trying to call me and I'm just robot voicing back at him. Like that's
Yeah.
truly what it felt like. And I feel like up until that point I the same thing. Like I was like, I don't know if I know how to pray
Yeah.
because all I've been doing is chewing up these words that I've been taught and spitting them back out and I don't know what I'm even saying. So yeah, like learning to actually pray as a conversation was something that I didn't even realize that wasn't something I knew how to do until I thought about the words I've been saying during my prayers and I'm like, what am I saying? Like what are we even talking about? I don't even know some of these words. Like they're weird old words that I don't even know what I'm saying. So, like, until came to that point of like, okay, I need to sit down and basically like reteach myself how to pray because I don't know if I knew. Like, I knew just like you said, like all these like all those prayers that I had to learn, and then obviously times where I'm like, God, please let this happen, or please, whatever. Thank you, God, for this. Like little snippets, like, but I don't think I was ever having like real conversations with God until a few years ago, which
Mm.
that's changed my life and my faith immensely. So I'm so grateful for that realization because if I had just kept going with spitting out the ones that I memorized, I don't think I would have the relationship with God that I have now. So definitely grateful for that. But yeah, just like you said, like figuring out the way that you're showing up, and like I learned that I was not showing up in the way that like my best way
Yeah.
in that my relationship with God. So that was a huge game changer. But also like even more recently with like we're talking about today, like being too tired to pray. And I think we talked a few weeks ago about like idols, like things you're putting in front of God. And I think that there are obviously idols in our lives that we put in front of God, like, oh, I'm too tired to do, I don't want to open my Bible tonight. I'd rather just turn on the TV, like stuff like that, like getting in the way of our relationship with God. But I think even on a deeper level of the idea of like being too tired to pray, I I mean, I've definitely been in situations and gone walk through seasons and times where like you're truly just too like I can sit there and say I want to pray and like my brain just will not form the words and like I just can't. I'm like, what am I even like? I can't even string two words together. Like I'm exhausted. And I think that those are moments too where it's really hard because I'm trying to put my energy into this and I just like can't keep my eyes open or I can't like even function properly to like get a prayer
Yeah.
together. And I think that's really challenging too because that's like, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, and I love that you brought up our idols episode because like it makes me think so at our church service this week, like our pastor was talking about people who say they're Christians but don't necessarily act like it. And that there's like a difference between like saying you're a Christian and actually acting godly. And he assigned us like homework and it was to like be in God's word and in prayer first thing in the morning. Like make that be the first thing you do in the day. And I found myself immediately in my head being like, oh, well, he doesn't know what my household looks like in the morning, or like my kids are my alarm clock. Like they're like, I have to go, go, go the second I'm awake. And like immediately being like, well, this doesn't apply to me. Like I'll fit God in wherever I can fit God in. And it's like, like press the brakes. Let's go back a little bit because it's like, how many excuses did I make immediately in my head before actually considering it, before actually being like, how can I make this a possibility? How can I make this real? And the other part to that too is like, I have had like ever since service, I have had this like thought replaying in my head of how do I want to be as a Christian? And how can I guide my kids to be like that? Like, basically teaching my kids to be the type of Jesus follower that I want to be, that I, like, aim towards, and it's like, I want them to aim for that too, and I wanna teach them the things to get to that point, and it's like, well, how am I gonna do that? How, especially, am I gonna do that if I'm not mirroring that? If they're not able to reflect, like, what they're seeing, if they're right, like, kids our kids' age are mirroring everything we do. You know, they're repeating things we say, they take in everything we do, and they wanna be a part of the things we do, and it's, like, so obvious where, well, I want them to chase after Jesus this way. How do I get them to chase after Jesus this way? Well, I need to chase after Jesus this way. Like, I need to stop making excuses. I need to catch myself in those moments and, like, auto correct myself kind of thing. And that's the way to get them to also start practicing that. And one of the examples he used that I thought was so cool because he was talking about like the areas in your life that are gonna like will change ultimately or should. And one of them was like your marriage and your family. And he even talked about in, like, the wider sense of, like, oh, you get into the minivan after a family function, you're heading home, and you're immediately, like, breaking down everything that happened over the past couple hours, and, you could just be like it could sound how it probably sounds for a lot of us, or the majority of us, of like, "Oh, so and so was doing this. Oh, this was happening. Oh, I can't believe so and so did that." Where instead we need to try to reapproach it, and he was saying there's the difference between saying like, simply saying that you're a Christian and actually being godly and living like Christ is, like, the heart change of or mindset change also of being against them versus being for them being, like, the unbelievers, and instead of, "Oh, they're doing all this, and this does not fit into my Christianity box, and I'm going to apply all the things to them even though they aren't even introduced to my God." And I'm gonna set that expectation on them, but if somebody says they're a Christian, whether or not they ask God like, act godlike or Christ-like, and then we're like, "Oh, okay, well, you get a pass because you say you're a Christian." It's like, no, pump the brakes, back it up again." And he was in the examples he was using, like, going back to the minivan, he said to reframe it and try some tenderness and try kindness and just be like, so and so is probably going through this or acting in this way because of whatever it may be. You're like, why don't we pray for him or whoever it is, And just him reshaping that. Or the other example you use is like when your partner comes home and is like, I had a really hard day at work and so was being a total butt. Like, just we automatically roll into that narrative, and try again, like a little tenderness, a little kindness, and reframe it as, so and so is really acting this way. And I'm unsure why. It could be this, but like daddy's really trying to be there for them and continue showing up for them. Can we pray over so and pray over daddy? And I'm just like, that clicked so much and like hit a spot in me
Mhm.
where I was like, yes, I love that. I want to implement that right now. Like right now. And that is something that I very much want to strive for, and I feel like it's a goal that is, like, so far away from me right now because I'm, again, like, really just trying to grasp the basics of prayer at the moment. Like, relearning what it well, not relearning, just learning for the first time of, like, okay, what does it really truly mean to be in prayer with God and to really implement that into my life? But what I really want is any time that I notice certain yucky feelings popping up in me, anytime there's any type of overwhelm, over touch, over over everything, like anytime any of like bad days, bad moments, bad whatever comes up, like I want there to be an instant like big old stop sign in my head, big old red light that's just blinking. Pray first. Like stop and pray. Like before I react to anything, pray before I be start to like when I start to feel those emotions twist, like pray and like hand it off to
Mhm.
God. And I think it's really easy whenever we get into those like busy weeks or overwhelming weeks where everything just feels like it's coming on so fast and coming at us so fast. I feel like it's really easy to get caught up in that and to like fall into our feelings and our frustrations and start to, like you said, like get into that point of like, I'm gonna snap. One more thing's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna like snap, and I'm not gonna mean to. And I think it's really
Mm.
easy to fall into that, and we all do it. And that's definitely a goal for me is whenever I feel these emotions creeping in, not once it gets to the point of like, I'm gonna snap, but like even way back, like steps before, like that first moment of like, I didn't like how that happened, or I didn't like how I felt or the bad feelings or sinking in kind of thing. Like the very first moment, I want to be able to be like, okay, let's stop and pray. And I want that to be for myself. I want that to be something that my kids can also take and implement too, as well. Like that's the thing I want them to be able to mirror.
Yeah, and I think a good way to start doing that, I mean, at least for kids our age, I like for obviously like checking like checking yourself is like, if you are someone who like immediately goes to like gossiping or talking badly about people like as soon as you leave the function.
Mhm.
I know for a fact anything that I say my kids will repeat back to someone.
Yeah.
So if you're in that boat in that season, that's a way to immediately check yourself where you're like, I mean, it will translate to an internal heart change, but on the surface, if I say this, I know my kid is going to repeat this. Is this something I want to hear come out of their mouth? Is this something that I want the person who I'm about to talk about to
Mhm.
hear come out of my kid's mouth because I said it first? Like I think that that's if you're having trouble catching yourself in that way, have a 5-year-old around you because they like,
They will.
that's a way to check yourself real quick because
Yeah.
they are
They'll
little
humble you
parents.
fast.
Yes, and I mean, if that's, like, something that you need to, like, call yourself out on and be like, "Yeah, I do go to that gossip or that, talking badly about other people." And, I mean, yeah, I you wanna stop doing that, that is a heart change. That's you're gonna have to work that muscle of, like, switching that immediately of, like, instead of this coming out of my mouth, I need to take a second and, like, make a better choice, basically.
Mhm.
But if you're having trouble making that choice, have your kid repeat it a couple times and you're gonna make that choice quicker. God puts them in our lives for many reasons, and that I think is one of them to humble us and make us better. So yeah, I mean, I love that. I think putting that into our lives more. Obviously, your kids are gonna absorb that because they do what we do. I mean, do as I say, they do what you do. So just saying, "Hey, pray for that person," isn't enough. They will have to see you do it and hear you do it over and over and over again to get that into their mind of like, "Okay, this is what we do. That is not what we do. This is what we do." Yeah, I think that's not a quick fix, but, like, that's something that if you're having trouble implementing that, just I mean, thinking of, like, even if you're not ready for that heart change on your own, whether you wanna be or not, it's just whether or not you're, you know, ready for that.
Yeah.
If you have in your mind, like, "I want my kids to be better at this than I am," or "I want my kids to learn this sooner than I learned it," it's gonna rub off on you either way. Like, I think that
Yeah.
that's something that's, I don't wanna say easy to implement, but, like, it feels less intimidating when it's like, you don't always wanna admit, like, "I need to learn this lesson." But if I'm thinking, "Oh, I want my kids to be this way," you're gonna learn it anyway because 'cause you're gonna practice it more and you're gonna get better at it and you're gonna be quicker to go that direction instead of the other direction, and it's just gonna come more naturally.
100%. And I feel like as moms, a lot of us will probably relate to this thought of sometimes it feels less intimidating or actually joyful or like a higher priority if it's something that you're doing for your kids or you're doing for someone else,
Mhm,
period, versus doing it for yourself. And take advantage of that. Like I know we've talked about how we need to make ourselves a priority in the past, but also like take advantage. If you know that you're trying to break that mindset, you know you're trying like you're that type of person, you're that type of mom, friend, whatever, where it's easier to do something if you feel like you're doing it for someone else and not yourself. Like at least in this situation, like just as an unexpected side effect, like you're going to benefit from it as well. Like if you're going into it with the goal of, I want to teach, like, I know this is going to be so beneficial for my child if I'm teaching them, like when they feel frustrated or if like they feel like something's going on in their life or they come home and they're telling you about so and something happened and teaching them to pray first so that they can find peace, so that they can find that relationship with God and grow it. That ultimately, by doing that with them, will still, just as like a side effect, will still work its way in you. It will still be
mhm,
time that you're also spending in prayer with God. It will still be you connecting and communicating with Him, even if it is with your children or for your children. And I think that also applies to those of us without children where, like, I need to pray for my friend. Like, find the people that you feel like you need to pray for. Like, if you feel like you're like us and this is new to you and it's foreign to you, and you're like, I just don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, like, find your people to pray for. There's always something happening in your life. There's good, bad, pretty, ugly, whatever it is. There's always stuff going on in our lives. Nothing is ever just meh, like right down the middle. Nope. Like, life doesn't play that way. So, like, we always have friends, we always have family members that are going through something, and it doesn't have to be bad. It can be positive, it can be good. Or maybe there's people in your life that you really want to introduce to Christ, that you want God to be showing you these moments to like obvious moments of where can I spark a conversation with them? How can I bring God into the conversation with them? How can I introduce them? Pray for those moments. But I think it might be easier to start to form that prayer relationship, that communication with God, if you're starting from a place of doing it for other people, doing it for the people you
Mhm.
love, it might make it less intimidating. And then hopefully the goal obviously would be to get to the point where that doesn't need to be the case. It is something that like I said and you said of that is our first reaction. That is our first go-to. That is the first thing we do in the morning, the last thing we do at night. God is supposed to be number 1 for us. He is supposed to be above all. And it's like, well, if you ask me, who are the people I'm putting first? Well, my children and my spouse and then my parents and like, like the list goes on and on and on and on. Well, those people who are important in your life, how do you treat them? Like, just like we're talking about how our kids can be that mirror for us and they like do the things we do. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at ourselves through the mirror a little bit. And where are we like, how do we treat our relationships that are our priority? Because my spouse is the first person I talk to and the last person I talk to. Like, my kids are like right there behind them. And then it's like the people that I talk to daily are my best friends, my family. Like, God needs to be your first, not your last. And I think that in itself needs to, like, we need to shift that focus kind of thing.
Yeah, totally, and I think that pulls us even back into exactly what we're talking about today is, like, um, if you're working that muscle, if you're, you're basically practicing that of, like, making that your first reaction because we're of this world. There's distractions, there's stuff, there's people, there's, whatever. We train our muscles to look at other things, and we almost need to train our muscles to look back to how they're supposed to be of, like, looking to God first, and the more we do that, the easier it's gonna be whenever we are weary, whenever we're tired and we're like, I'm so tired, I can't even pray. If you are doing that day in and day out, praying first whenever things come up, whenever things aren't coming up, like just throughout your day, first, last, whatever, the more you do that and the more you practice that and the more you are in conversation with God, whenever you are so weary, you're not going to have trouble finding words.
Yeah.
I don't think. Like, it's gonna be easier whenever you're weary. You're never gonna be too tired to pray in that sense, I don't think, where you're like and I don't even mean, like, physical exhaustion, like, I think in our case, we're talking about that, like, physical, emotional exhaustion of just, like, just day in and day out nonstop stuff, but I think there's a lot there are times when you're walking through darkness or walking through seasons that are just heavy and challenging, and there are times where you're, like, just spiritually exhausted, where you're like, I can't even do this anymore. Like, I'm just totally drained. And I again, I just think like having those relationships with God and like having those conversations daily, even when you get to the point where you feel like you're too tired, you're still in such strong relationship with God if you have been doing that and you build up this relationship where he doesn't need a big long 10-minute prayer. Like he knows your heart. You can have a moment of like, please, Lord, just help me get through the rest of this day. And that's fine. You don't need to have this big, long memorized prayer always. The point is that you're just looking to God in those moments. Even if you're too tired to string the words together, just taking them a couple minutes at the end of the day, just even if you're just laying in bed in the first 2 minutes of silence you've had all day, and just, like, taking a breath and, like, even if it's just in your heart, like, you don't have to be saying the words out loud necessarily if you're in that season where you're like, "I can't even do that." Just taking those few moments and think, like, in your head, like, "Lord, please just help me get through this," or, like, it doesn't have to be I think when you get to the point of that emotional, spiritual, physical exhaustion, I think we think like, "Well, I can't pray for a couple minutes, like, I don't even have enough words for that." It's okay. Like, God knows your heart. You're in that relationship with him. It's like when you have a friend and you're like, gosh, I would never say this, but, like, if you see someone, you're like, you just look tired, like, you look like you just need to sit down," or when people in your life are going through a hard season and they just look drained, like, you can feel it
Mhm,
coming off of them. God knows that. He sees that
mhm,
in you. He knows what you're going through. He knows he knows everything. He knows your heart. He knows that you're not I think in this case, it's not a case of false idols. I think
mhm,
this specific case that we're talking about is just true exhaustion because we're
mhm.
human, and God sent his son to this earth as a human. He knows Jesus knew that exhaustion. He's not going to hold that exhaustion against you whenever you're truly still trying to pursue this relationship. So I think give yourself a little bit of grace in that, where it's you don't have to have this big, long, elaborate memorized prayer.
Sure.
Just talk to God. Just tell him what's on your heart. And if the words aren't there, it's okay. He knows what you're trying to say because you're feeling it. You're not it's not like you're choosing to not have the words. You know what I mean? But also that brings us to the verse of the week that we chose too for two reasons. The first is I couldn't choose just one verse, but it's basically all I chose a psalm. It's Psalm 63. And then I went on a little bit of a deep dive, which ties back into something else you said. So I'm just going to read this really quickly. Yeah, Psalm 63. I'm reading verse 1 through 8, but that's your homework to read the rest of it. Uh, you, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you. In a dry and parched land where there's no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. I will be fully satisfied as with the richest of foods. With singing lips, my mouth will praise you. On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night. Because you are my help, I sing in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. So I think that's a beautiful picture of just clinging to God whenever you're exhausted, in anything. I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry, parched land where there's no water, which, I mean, David was literally in a desert at this time. But
I
when
was
you're
just
feeling
about to
that,
say, is this a David verse?
yeah. Yeah, when you're yeah, but, when you're feeling that exhaustion, it does just feels like you're parched, you're thirsty, you're hungry, you hungry for something, running on fumes, like we've said before, and it's God is there for you in those moments of just pure exhaustion, and he's gonna, cling to him. I seek you. I long for you, and I I just think that that's some beautiful imagery to think of, not just for being in an actual desert, but also just feeling like you're wandering and looking for something, like you're just exhausted.
You can just tell. There's something about any of the Psalms that are written by David, you can just tell and there's a beauty to them because there's 2 things. 1, there's usually a huge sense of vulnerability in them, and
Mhm,
2, there's, this personal connection. There's this personal communication with God. He doesn't hold
mhm.
anything back. He is just, mad, sad, upset, tired, in love, all in for God. No matter what it is, he is just straightforward and God, this is yours. And you can just call out a David psalm for that reason. And I think those are 2 things to strive to mimic, talking about mirroring or mimicking or doing all these things. I feel like those are 2 very strong things to reflect is you're being vulnerable with God and personal. Those are 2 things that should be a part of your relationship with God, should set the
Yeah,
framework.
and if you are in relationship with God, it's not gonna feel uncomfortable to be vulnerable with him, I don't think.
I
I
feel
mean, at
like
least for me, the more I
yeah,
get into prayer and the more I talk to God, it's easier to talk about stuff that's hard to talk about with
yeah,
anybody
and
else.
I feel like that is one of the things that is a bridge that is difficult for a lot of us to cross is that discomfort in being vulnerable. And it's funny in a way of God already knows everything. You're not
Mhm.
telling him anything he hasn't heard or doesn't already know. He's there, he knows. But for us just communicating it, whether it be in our heart, in our heads, or out loud, it's so vulnerable. And a lot of us, it's especially whenever you haven't grown up having this consistent form of communication with God or this close relationship with him, it feels really uncomfortable to cross that bridge basically into that territory because you're okay, what's gonna happen? Like, this feels weird. What do I do? Versus, like, if it's something you've grown up with and you're used to sharing that, then that comes natural. But for a lot of us, it doesn't. It feels like, okay, I'm just like, how do I share these past things with you? How do I confess them to you? How do I, like, I know you already know, but also, like, it feels really icky kind of thing. And I think getting
Yeah.
past those hard moments is going to be hard. It's going to require vulnerability. It's going to require getting personal with God. But I think in doing so, you're going to basically be building the bedrock, the foundation for your relationship with God. Because until you're able to share and confess with Him everything, whether He knows it or not, He obviously does. Like, it's more that you're showing up and doing your part. You're showing that you're going to hold up your end of the relationship, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that like support is what we look to God for is exactly what I highlighted in this verse, which is it's in verse 8. It's the word upholds and the NIV, but that word upholds is what I looked up because I was like, I wonder what that like like we're leaning on God, like he's leaning on God. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. Like the act of that. I
Mhm.
wonder what word that comes from. And I'm not going to try to say the word because it's like a sound that my mouth doesn't make. But that word comes from it's Strong's, it's or 8551 and it's the word that means like support or sustain. And I was like, okay, so you look to God to sustain you, to support you whenever you cannot hold yourself up. And I mean, you're just like when you physically, emotionally, spiritually cannot hold yourself up any longer. I cling to you, you uphold me with your right hand. Like you're not too heavy for God to hold up whenever you can't hold yourself up. And I think that's a beautiful thing to keep in mind whenever it's just like I'm too tired to do this. Like you don't have to do it on your own. Like you have someone holding you, supporting you, sustaining you when you physically do not have the endurance. And that led me to a deep dive because the same word, that same word that is used for like support or sustain is the word that was used back way back in Exodus 17:12 specifically when the Israelites were fighting against the Amalekites and Moses was having to hold his hand up because if he lowered his hand then the Israelites would start to lose and if he held his hand up then they would prevail. So he had to keep his hands up until sunset so that the Israelites could prevail over the Amalekites. And there was this part of this story where Moses was so weary that he could not hold his hands up anymore. Like he was lower he just couldn't do it. Like his body was not he couldn't hold his hands up anymore. And that's when Aaron and her his 2 people that were with him, they came up and they would hold his hands up for him to, like,
Mm.
give him that support because he, like, could not hold his hands up anymore, and I just thought that was such a beautiful picture because it's that same word of, like, support, sustain that God does for us whenever we can't hold ourselves anymore. That's also something we can do for people around us because, like, just like Moses's hand like, he was growing weary, God provides that physical, spiritual support for us whenever we can't hold ourselves up, but it also gives a beautiful picture of, like, community, of, like, we don't have to hold ourselves up, like, we can show up for each other in that way too, where it's like, we don't like, we can do nothing without God,
Mhm.
but we also need each other, like, you can't do anything on your own.
Yeah.
Without you you need that support. We're not meant to do things on our own. Whenever you are too weary to hold your arms up, you have someone there to, like, help with that, like, to help support you, basically. And I think that's another thing I wanted to touch on this topic was, like, we build community for many reasons. One of them is to help sustain us when we can't hold our arms up any longer. And, just this idea of them holding up Moses' arms because he just did not have the stamina and like, your body is weak sometimes. Like, sometimes you just cannot hold your arms up any longer. You can't string a prayer together. You're just whatever you're walking through, whether it's, just a long day or a long, hard season of something challenging that's just weighing on you and you feel like you can't do it anymore. One, cling to God because he upholds you. I mean, you have that support, that sustenance, that endure like when you don't have the endurance, you
Yeah.
have that strength to hold you. But also the community you build around you is the same thing where it's like you put people in your life where if you're walking through these seasons of darkness or heaviness or you're just exhausted, you can't do it anymore, reach out to someone. Like almost like when you're too tired to pray for yourself, ask someone to do it for you. Kind of like God hears those silent prayers in your heart where you're just like, I can't do it anymore. I need help. But also just to like call someone, send a text someone, hey, I'm having a hard time. Can you pray for me? Like intercession, like stepping in for each other whenever our friends are too weary, whenever, someone around you is too weary. And I just think that's just a beautiful example of that. And I thought that was so cool that that came together that way.
Love that so much. I love that so much. I know whenever like, when my dad got admitted to the hospital and we were getting, like, all these, like, bad news after bad news, like, just thrown it just literally felt like darts being thrown at us constantly for days straight, and I was surprised by myself and also just that I felt so stunned. Like, I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to react. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And in my head, I'm like, I know I need to pray, but I haven't prayed. Like, I have not prayed. And I was getting to a point where I was like even irritated with myself or mad at myself, where I was like, why haven't I prayed yet? And I'm like, because I don't know what to say. Like, I was just like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to pray for. I know now looking back, it was me being like, well, I need to pray for something specific because it was like me trying to control the outcome. I'm like, I have to pray for a certain outcome. And like, I brought this up to my husband, Ben, at one point. I was like, I haven't prayed. I don't know what to, like, everybody keeps saying, I'm praying over you. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for your dad. And I'm like, and it meant so much. And then there was part of me where I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know what to pray for. And I literally, I think I was at McDonald's of all places. And like, just was like, I don't know what was going. I think I was picking up like breakfast to take to my mom or something like that at the hospital. And I was just like sitting in line waiting. And I was just like, finally got to the point where I was like, I have to say something. And, like, that was one of those I'm too weary moments, and my prayer was simply, "God, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm sorry that I haven't talked to you, and it's because I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to ask for. I don't know what to pray for. And, like, I feel like I should be praying that you heal my dad and make all things better. Obviously, I want that," I said, "but I don't know what to pray for." I'm like, because some of the things that we were being told were just like, we thought we'd have days. Like, we had no idea how bad, like, it just, I was so stunned and so caught off guard by it. And so, like, all of those things and so overwhelmed by it. And that was just my prayer, was like, I don't know what to pray, but I just need you. Like, you know what's on my heart. You know what's on my head. I don't know how to say the right words right now, but just I really need you to take whatever I've got to give you, and like, not my will, but yours be done. And that was all I could string together. And I think there's something, I mean, I really do think God's hand was very much at play in my dad and his results and his recovery now. And um God bless all of the people continuing to pray for him every day. But it just makes me think too of, like I said at the beginning, how for a lot of us, we grow up, like, even non-believers know there's, like, specific times when people pray, of, like, dinner time, bedtime, whatever that be. And I think just in hearing you talk about, like, creating that muscle memory earlier on, I think that's where those moments come into play, of intentionality, of being intentional, of like, I will continue to do these prayers, or not necessarily prayers, but like keep like specific prayers or words, but these times, these moments, and keep them holy and keep them like consistent, where that's something that I both myself and my husband try to do with our kids. It's like we always pray over dinner time. Always, 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 always. It doesn't matter if we've had a long day and the girls are sitting at their TV trays and we're in the TV while we are like about to crash out on the couch. Or
Mhm.
if we are all together as a family at the dining room table, it doesn't matter. It's like, nope, we need to pray first. It doesn't matter if it's long. It doesn't, like, we don't have a set prayer that we do. The girls, like, we all take turns, like, between the four of us. They pray what they want to pray. We let them go for it. And it is like, and that's what it is. There's nothing necessarily sacred about it, There's nothing ritualistic about it. There's nothing specific that has to happen. It's just that is something for us that has to happen, that we need to make sure that goes into our day. And the same thing with bedtime. And it's like when you're trying to build that muscle, I think that's where these prayers that we maybe view as smaller or less important because they're so known or have been something throughout our lifetime that we don't really think about. And it's easy to minimize them, but it's also like, well, there's a reason we don't really think about them. It's because we've already built that muscle a little bit, you know? And I think just kind of using that and building off of that is really where those moments and those prayers and those times that come into play. I think the beautiful thing about those prayers are they help build the smaller moments of God already knows what's on your heart. You just, it can be like, think of, I feel like it's so easy to put pressure on ourselves. I know I do this where I'm like, I'm talking to God. I gotta have all these things to say. It's gotta be just right. Like, why am I gonna open my mouth or open, like, it has to be perfect. Like, it's gotta be good. And it's like, no, no, it does not. Like, think of your relationship with your spouse. Think of your relationship with your best friend. Think of your relationship even with your kids. Like, is every conversation going to be a long, drawn out conversation, in depth, deepest, darkest secrets? No. No, it is not. Do those conversations need to happen in order for your relationship to get to a point where trust is built, vulnerability comes in, like all of the personal connection happens? Yes, very much. Does my husband know everything about me? Yes. Do my best friends know everything about me? Yeah, probably. Does God, have I vocalized everything I need to vocalize to God? Like, that's the question I think we need to ask ourselves is like, are you as vulnerable with God as you are with your best friend? If the answer is no, that's the place you need to start. But also, in that same breath, like those conversations need to happen, but not every conversation needs to be like that. Like a lot of the time with the people you have that good relationships within your life, a lot of the times it is like, I'm having a bad day. And that's it. It's a text that says, I'm having a bad day. Please send help.
Mm.
Please send caffeine. Like, give me coffee. Like the goal is to get your relationship with God to that level where you can have the big conversations and you can, in those bad moments, just send the words to Him, just send those little messages too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that also points to remembering that no prayer is too small. No prayer is too small. Even if it's like you said, the equivalent of like sending an emoji to God of being like SOS, like SOS.
Yeah, but
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be a whole like
even
just
like hands up emoji, like a little good thing.
yeah, like thank
Your
you or
praise.
yeah, like there no prayer is too small. And also I mean, take some rest and, some refuge in that no prayer is too small, but also you're not gonna waste God's time with a prayer that you think is not good enough. God's time is not
Yeah.
any conversation with God is not wasted time. He has no he's outside of time. You're not gonna waste God's time with a prayer that you think is not good enough. So don't give yourself some grace with that too of like, worrying because 'cause I've done that too where I'm like, "Is this a good enough prayer to get," like, I'm not you don't need to, like, proofread your prayer before you send the email
Yeah.
to God, you know what I mean? Like, just talk to God, like, he literally created you before your heart even took its first beat. You don't have to be uncomfortable or worried that you're gonna say something wrong. So I think that's something that's good to remember too of, like, if you're just in this moment of full exhaustion, you're like, "I don't even know what to say, so I'm not gonna say anything." You don't have to say the right thing, just something, even if it's just in your heart. Say something.
And I feel like you'll really start to notice a change too. Whenever you're going to God constantly in prayer, when you're going to like have that active communication with Him, that personal communication with Him and relationship with Him. Like I really feel like even when it feels like it's small, like just like you said, when you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling at your wit's end and you feel like you're too tired to pray, but you make the choice to do it anyways, I think you will probably immediately feel that change take over. Like, I really think you will immediately feel the effects of that takeover, and I really also think that that adds to the bigger picture, like that will add to your relationship with God in the long run. That add to how you approach things in the future. That will add with how you handle those situations in the future. That will adjust your mindset. That will probably make those feelings less scary, less heavy when you're faced with them again, because you're creating that tool, but not just a tool, that personal connection. Because why do we feel so tired in those moments? Why do we feel so worn out? And why does it feel so heavy? It's often because we feel like we're alone and we're carrying it all alone. And if we're able in those moments when we're feeling those feelings, we feel like we're too tired to pray and we fight against the enemy in that, we're gonna realize God is, just like you said, holding our arms up for us.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
really easy to focus on the pain in those moments instead of realizing who is right there helping you hold it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that visual of, like, you're thinking of how bad your shoulders are burning, but at the same time, you're like, "Oh, my hands are still up."
How's that happen?
Yeah.
It makes me think of that, like, that's our lives, and just like Moses, just like that of God's always there holding us up when we don't even when we don't realize it, even when we're too tired to pay attention, like, he's still there, and I think that's the thing, right? Like, that's the beauty of it, is he is there whether we ask him to be or not, but there's something that when we step up, when we do our part in the relationship, we then have that awareness of it and of his presence, and it makes things feel that much lighter. Just even if it's just a little bit, like, it just helps to put us at ease.
Transformation from within makes all the difference, I think. Doesn't mean your load is gonna be actually lighter, because walking with Jesus doesn't mean that it's gonna magically make everything easier from the outside.
Usually the opposite.
When you have that true transformation from the inside, it makes everything just feel a little lighter because you know you're not by yourself.
That note, speaking of prayer, right. Dear Lord, thank you so much for being in this time with us, being ever present with us. Um, in the moments where we feel too tired, too worn out, too everything, we are so grateful that you are there holding us up and pushing us through those hard, tough moments. And we just thank you and praise you. I My hope is that for both B and myself, and for all of our listeners, that we are able to welcome you in those moments and be able to turn over our heavy burdens to you, Lord, that we're able to ask you and take notice of your presence there, holding us up and upholding us. I pray that moving forward, whoever needs to hear this message, whoever needs to know that you are present, Lord, that it reaches their ears and their hearts. And I pray that you continue upholding us as we move forward. And I pray that you also help us to pray, that you help us to communicate with you more, help all of us to seek a deeper, more personal, more vulnerable relationship with you, to be like David and to just chase after you with our whole hearts, to set you at the top where you so rightly deserve to be placed in all of our hearts and all of our lives. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
It's beautiful.
Love. That was Spirit.
Yeah,
As an
happens all the
example of
time.
when you don't have the words and you're just winging it, he'll fill it for you.
Yes. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, so if this resonated with you, or you know a friend who might be walking through something similar, please share it with them. Share our show. We're on all the places that you can find podcasts. Obviously, you know that because you're listening to us, but if someone else doesn't know, but you can follow us on Instagram. You can go to the link in our bio. We have our website up there. You can find all of our episodes there, transcripts, all that fun stuff. Yeah, is that everything?
And book club coming soon.
Yes, book club is ongoing, so that's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. Always checking for that. And we're absolutely loving the book that we have been diving into through the beginning of this year. So sign up for notifications on that. Be a part of that newsletter because you won't want to miss out. It's really fun.
I feel like my brain is
All of
not
us
working and I can't remember what we said.
still mashed potatoes. We're still mashed potatoes. I hope
Goodness.
y'all are not mashed potatoes. And I hope that we can all take this message and turn our week around. And let's start on a high note and start implementing today. Today is Monday. So we are going to, by the time you hear this, it'll be a Monday. So let's just take that and roll with it. And we love starting things on Mondays. So let's just start a fresh new week doing all the things we talked about.
I love
And
it.
by the time we're all back here together next week, we're going to be pros.
Yes.
That's the goal. But on
Perfect.
that note, thank y'all for joining in and listening, and we can't wait to talk to you next week.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.